Okay, so today we're going to look at some hands from a session that Bean has played at 16NL. Bean, how you doing?
This has been.
So it's been a while since this session, about a week, is that right?
Yeah, about 5-6 days, I think. Yeah.
And as the viewers can probably tell from the screen they're currently looking at, it didn't go very well. Would that be fair?
That would be very fair.
Now, we want to look at this to see if we've made any significant mistakes, which I have a feeling at minus 81 big blinds 100 we may well have done. But it's quite possible that, losing 10 buy-ins in 1,200 hands is variance. So, but judging by the way Bean plays, I would have a fair idea of how this may have gone down. So I know that he feels it's a very unfortunate session and it has to be right for him to be losing this much. I mean, you'd have to try pretty hard, I think, to lose this much in this amount of hands. So we're going to have a look at them, and Bean is going to select the hands, obviously the main losing hands, where he feels that just want to make sure that nothing's gone outwardly wrong, and just to make sure for the future before he plays again. Hopefully still at 16, Bean, or do you think you might have to drop down after this absolute punt?
I'm not dropping down. If I run out of money, I'll reload.
Okay, right. Some good bankroll management we're practicing here. And so we're going to load up the first hand now and crack on with some review. We have ace queen on the button. Do you want to play ahead, Bean? And it folds to us or this. Okay, so it folds to the cutoff and he opens, and I think we have a clear 3-bet. Make this 10. Sorry, 9, not 10 because we're in position. And it folds back to him, and he decides to call. Did he start short? I didn't quite see. Sorry, I think he did. Right? Yeah. Or did he? Looks like he might have done.
No, he started full.
Okay. So, our opponent decides to check, I imagine, and we elect to continue. Obviously, here, pretty good board for our range. He's going to struggle quite a lot, I think. And when he raises, we don't block any heart draws, which is definitely significant. He can certainly have, pocket 10s, probably not pocket 4s, but he can have them maybe sometimes. Maybe something like ace 4 suited, but we do block one combo of that. Probably not ace king. He'd probably elect to 4-bet that at least some frequently. And then there's stuff like ace 10, right? But we unblock, all of the really good heart combos that he's certainly going to be bluffing with, like king jack of hearts and queen of hearts. So we definitely can't fold here. That would be premature. And so calling is definitely my preferred option here. Yeah, no problem. Turn to 3, and our opponent bets small. I don't know if I expect many people at these stakes to bet small with all their bluffs as well as their value. So I'm starting to feel a little bit suspicious that this is more geared towards value. Obviously, we still do beat like king queen and those hands we were talking about before. So I don't think it's too unreasonable to continue calling. But as we talked about on the flop, he does have he reps quite a lot of good value here, even though we do better on this board in general because we're going to have 10s and aces and ace king and stuff. He does have some good hands, so I am a bit concerned about this sizing given the general player pool that I've experienced, but I think we do have to call and see a river. So yeah, that's fine. And on the deuce, he's not going to have many 5s. The deuce changes nothing, right? And does he jam? Yeah, and I think he's just going to have ace 10 and 4 and ace 4 and pocket 10s and sometimes pocket 4s, and I think we can probably find a fold here. Like when we're thinking about folding here, we're thinking about what kind of hands we get to the river with, and we can have ace king obviously all the time. We can have pocket 10s that we play like this potentially. We can have pocket aces that we play like this. Maybe ace 10 that we didn't want to fast play. So we have better hands, right? And obviously it sucks because the price we're getting is really good, but I do not think that many people take this line with a bluff, and I think we can probably save ourselves 52 blinds here, but only given the fact that we can have better hands, right? But we don't have a heart, which is good. I mean, if you had ace queen with the queen of hearts here, I would say this is a slam dunk fold and potentially even maybe fold the turn. But I think you maybe ace king without a heart is a very good calling hand, and ace 10 obviously we're going to call down with. Ace 4 we're going to have sometimes that we don't fast play on the flop. So I think what do you think about that anyway?
Yeah, looking at it now, I think we can get away. I mean, There is a lot of hands. I mean, I could do this with,
Yeah, but that's not a
10 jack of
fair.
hearts,
You're not a
queen jack
fair.
of hearts, king 10 of hearts.
Yeah, we
There's a
know.
lot of combos that you would fire this bullet on with some.
I
I
think
don't know.
there's.
It's just tough. I'm getting over 2-1, and I've got ace queen. And he's missed his draws, so it's hard for me to fold when I'm getting those odds. But
I
yeah,
understand that.
the giveaway for me is the small bet on the turn. It
Mm,
looks exceptionally strong. I think he had a chance to jam turn to make it
yeah,
put maximum pressure on if he wanted to bluff.
with those hands, yeah, you're talking about, and I think that this general player pool, like I've just said, is not really capable of like betting small and then jamming this river for bluffing. Like this sizing is just like it's not very good. It's not very good sizing, and I think that generally it's going to be very very geared towards value. So when we can have much better hands, like sets and two pairs quite easily, I think this is probably a fair fold, at least on the river.
I think if I've got ace king here, I can't ever fold. But I think ace queen, I think.
Well, ace king is pretty much the same as ace queen, right?
Yeah,
Because
but he could do this with ace king, you see. So that's why I would
yeah,
elect to call with that.
he could definitely have. Yeah, that's a fair assessment. He could certainly have ace king that he chose not to four bet at some frequency. People are going to four bet for sure. I guess that I need to give a little bit more credence towards that. So if you're saying he can have ace king, then this is just a slam dunk fold, and I guess he probably can. It's slightly optimistic. I think check raising the flop is something that I wouldn't expect to see very often. Maybe with the ace king of clubs, but we block that. So I would expect him maybe to play ace king differently, which is why I'd lean more towards seeing him have like ace 10 or a set of tens here. What does he have? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? And I think we can certainly find a fold here. Like ace 10 is like our obviously best hand to call down with because we block tens and we block ace 10, him having ace 10 himself, so he's going to have a lot more bluffs. So ace 10 we can never fold, but this hand, given that we have some other better options, I think we can go ahead and fold. So that's fair, Bean?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go and grab another hand, and this next set of hands that we're going to look at is against one opponent who we had pink tagged, and I think Bean was on the verge of losing his proverbial shit. Would that be fair, Bean?
That's fair.
Let's have a look at the next set. So these next three hands are against one opponent. Now we had him tagged as pink, and you can see he's on our right on the cutoff in this hand, and he's playing very nitty stats over 100. So we're pretty sure that he's going to be pretty bad, maybe fairly nitty, but like he's certainly a fish, and I think we'd seen him do some other stuff, hadn't we? Been we'd already had him pinked at this point.
Yeah.
So I think that we were moving into this hand thinking, obviously, we want to get spots against this guy. And we have aces, which is obviously a good spot, and folds to Yunuski, I think.
Yeah.
Who opens to 2.5, and we have a clear 3-bet, which is good sizing as well. Could go maybe slightly bigger because we're deeper, and against a fish, but I think that's fine. And he 4-bets, and I think you can probably against most fish just jam here. But certainly you can, if you're going to use any hand to trap, then this is obviously the best one to use, and we're in position, so this makes sense to call, and yeah, that's fine. I didn't know that you called there, but that's a very reasonable spot to call in. Obviously, you're not worried about seeing any overcards, so I think you can just get it in against fish. That seems like the best line, but certainly mixing this in once in a while seems very reasonable. And we see 8 queen 3, and our opponent checks. So he's basically saying he has a medium strength. Holding, maybe something like, what is it? Maybe a 4-bet bluffed ace queen, but we block that pretty hard. Maybe a 4-bet bluffed king queen that he didn't want to bet. But I'd expect him to probably continue with those most of the time. So maybe like pocket jacks that he 4-bet with, something like that. Maybe ace king as well. So an ace king that's probably giving up, right? So we bet small, which I think is very good, and I think Yunuski decides to call. Yeah. And the turn gives us the nut flush draw as well, which is certainly, good for us. I mean, he's probably going to continue with most of his flush draws on the flop anyway, so he doesn't. Okay. We expected him to check there. He didn't remember, right? I certainly think this card is good for us, given that he's going to have most of his flushes are going to want to bet the flop themselves, I would say. I don't think he's going to be very balanced by checking lots of flush draws on the flop and stuff like that. So I think it's safe to say that he's not going to have flush very often. And obviously against this size, nothing really much to say. We are just going to call. And Januski shows up with the 8-6 ball. And I remember you being, because I was on Discord the other time, and I remember you being extremely tilted about this hand, which is fair enough, right? Because he's 4-bet 8-6. I mean, I like his flop check. I don't think he needs to jam the turn, but like if you're going to have a turn leading range, I guess I don't know what it would look like in this spot, but I suppose this could go in there. And yeah, our call is obviously completely normal, and you run pretty bad in this spot, mate, because you still have loads of outs as well. So yeah, nothing to say here, but we have 2 more hands against this guy just to give you a better idea of what the kind of thing that we were up against. So we're going to grab the next one now. So our next hand, we have aces on the button against the same opponent who's on. Sorry, we have aces in the big. So I'm gonna start again. So in this hand, we have aces on the big blind, and our opponent is on the button. And I believe, does it fold to him? It folds to him, and he opens. Same opponent as last hand, and we have another clear 3-bet with aces. So this has happened just after, like 100 hands after the previous hand. So we obviously know that he's the same guy. And Januski decides to call, I think. Call? Yeah. Very, very clear C-bet for us. We're going to be doing really, really well on this board. He shouldn't be doing very well on this board, which is why we obviously can continue for a very small sizing a lot of the time. So, he's going to have a lot of hands like 7s through 10s that are going to want to call this bet. So it seems pretty good. Queen on the turn. Obviously, we don't block king queen, so that is unfortunate. But against king queen, because he's not going to have kings and queens all that often, I think against king queen that we're just going to have to. We have an unfortunate situation. But having the ace of hearts isn't the best. I'd rather have the ace of clubs, ace of spades. But what can you do? I think betting again to size the river is completely reasonable for those reasons, and he elects to jam. Obviously, he can have pocket 6s, probably deuces as well, and king queen. So those are his like only pretty much hands that he's representing here. And then given that there are, I know we have the ace of hearts, but given that there are diamond draws and some other heart drawers like jack 10 of hearts and stuff, he's probably going to want to do this with as well. I don't know how balanced he's going to be, but I don't love it, but we do have to call for sure. So we call, and we see a 4, which seems good, but Januski has king queen off. So I mean, he's played his hand okay. I'd probably just call turn unless he's doing a lot of raising, jamming on the turn with like jack 10 stuff like that. We have the ace of hearts, like I've said, it's not great, but I mean, what are you going to do, right? I mean, you're not displeased with your player in either of these hands, are you? Just incredibly infuriating.
Yeah.
Turning 2-pair on us both times, and we had a pretty, good spots in both hands against a weak opponent, and I think we probably would have got more. Obviously, would have got the rest on a non, most runouts on the previous board. We probably wouldn't have got paid, but I think on this board we probably could have got the rest against this guy. So it is a real shame. Obviously, he is nitty, which makes me think he's not going to have those jack 10s very often. But I mean, if we fold here, Matt, what are we doing? Just calling with kings and queens? We can't do that. So he can have ace king, I guess, but probably not super often because he's going to 4-bet quite high frequency. But yeah, another very unfortunate spot, mate. And so far, I mean, this isn't a punt or no punt, but I think to be fair, this is going to have to be going in 100% of the time, and you can't feel too bad about it. So we've got one more hand against this guy, which we're going to bring up now. So our third hand against this opponent in quick succession, we have kings on the big blind, and he's on the button again. And we can go through the action now. Folds to him and he opens, and same situation as last time, clear 3-bet. I like the bigger size. It's fine against this guy because he hasn't shown any propensity to fold yet. And I think these stats are probably a bit of an outlier because he had 4-bet 8-6 off 8-6 suited out position pre. So we can probably disregard those. We see queen 8-7, which is pretty good. He's going to have some queen X. Obviously, he doesn't have king queen very often, but he can have ace queen. He can have queen jack suited. He's going to have pocket 8s and pocket 7s sometimes, maybe 9-10, but we're going to get loads of value here. And starting small seems good. I think you could maybe size up slightly, but I don't think it's too much of a consideration. Obviously, we can go for stacks by the river. And he elects to call. The turn's a 3, which is a very safe card. He shouldn't have, much, Queen 3 or, 8-3 or 7-3. It changes nothing, right? So if we were ahead on the flop, we're still ahead now. And if we weren't ahead, we're pretty close to being dead. And he decides to go all in again. So right now you're thinking, I remember you saying, fuck's sake, he's got Queen 3, hasn't he? Because it's just how you feel after you get stacked 2 hands in a row by a turn 2 pair. But obviously, again, nothing we can do, and we have to call. And fortunately enough, we are able to book a win in this particular hand against the hand, probably one of those hands that we were hoping to see. I mean, when he jams the turn, if he's not bluffing, which so far he hasn't at all in these spots, we'd expect him to have maybe like 10-9 of hearts would be a really good spot to do this in, or Jack 10 of hearts. But is he doing it? I don't know. We do have the King of Hearts, which isn't great either, but he can certainly have this hand here. And because the turn doesn't change much, and because we're already obviously in a 3-bet pot where we've bet 2 streets already, there's nothing we can do here. So yeah, we managed to win one, which is good. But just wanted to include this one for completeness, because these hands against this guy came thick and fast, and I know that you were on that turn. You pretty much you normally would snap call, especially against the fish that you have pinked. But against here, you are literally like, he's got Queen 3, and I was like, just put it in. So yeah, how do you feel about those 3 hands in general?
Awful.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm glad we won one in the end.
Yeah.
But he put so much pressure on. I remember just thinking, it was every turn card. The 3 hands was similar pattern every turn.
Yeah, but
I like his play to a degree, because
I mean,
he's got an out on the river here, because he can catch his ace or his queen and still win if I call. So it's like he's given himself a chance. But yeah, it was a pretty poor session, and this guy was the standout that took the most money off me, and he's still sitting there with, even after winning that hand with 500 bigs of my own money. It's annoying.
Yeah, well, I think that his play is okay here for sure. Like, I'd probably just call the turn and then call off river, but it's not unreasonable. His play in the previous hand with King Queen was probably totally fine, although I may have taken a similar line. And then his play with 8-6, I think, is just way out of whack. 4-betting 8-6 is just not in the book, as they say. So
it's trash.
Yeah.
And if Yanuski's watching this, I'm coming for you.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's grab another hand and see what we can find. Okay, so in this hand, we've got Ace Queen offsuit on the button, and our friend Yanuski is under the gun, and I can already feel Bean's blood boiling.
Yeah.
And he does open, I think, and we elect a 3-bet, which I think is very reasonable. Sizing seems good as well, and then we get a cold call from the small blind, which is not something that I would recommend. Obviously, the main interpretation of this is like jacks, 10s, 9s and stuff, and I just think that those hands play really badly in those situations, obviously, unless you flop a set. You've also got the problem of the guy behind you potentially coming over the top, and it's really hard to balance that range of hands. Obviously, you can maybe try and trap here at some points, but I think you're going to get way more value from just 4-betting your stronger parts of your range and not letting someone in behind it, and potentially seeing some like rough boards for you. So I don't particularly like cold calling for those reasons. I think it's just unnecessary over the complication of the strategies. So he does decide to call, and that probably means he has something like jacks and 10s more often than not. And then against our general player pool, unless he's like super good, and then Yanuski calls as well. And the flop is 3-4-10, and we have the ace of spades, which is good. Everyone checks to us, and we have a clear bet. I think we can. Yeah, I think sizing up is okay, because we're gonna. I guess you're sizing up to jam turn.
To be honest, I only size up to half pot because we're 3 to the flop.
Okay.
If we go heads up to this flop, I go a third pot normally with pretty much all my betting range.
Yeah, but you're going to struggle to do anything but jam turn as a bluff, right? If you get called.
Yeah, and this just happens to work out. If I get one caller, it means I've got a perfect size to jam the turn.
Yeah.
So
okay, that seems fair, because then obviously we can win by him folding or by making our hand. Yeah. And then obviously small blind jams, and obviously he's going to have 10s like a hell of a lot. As soon as I see this jam, I'm thinking pocket 10s. Yanuski, hopefully if your mental health folds. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean it's super close, right? Because we need about 34% to win, as what track is telling us, and we have against, on a to make a flush, we have about that much, so about 35%. So we're never dead, and we've already put a bit of money in, so I'd say we probably have to just go ahead and stick the rest of this in. What do we think his range looks like? Obviously tens is going to be like the vast majority of the time, and then maybe something like jacks that he decides to jam on a low board, but that seems optimistic. Tens is going to be the vast majority, wouldn't you agree? And then some flushes, like maybe king queen of spades, but that I really don't like that call pre. So I think more often than not it's going to be a set, but we do have, we don't have any dirty outs, so all of our spades are alive. So it's not like we've got a flush draw on a hand. So if he had a set of tens on and we had ace queen of spades on like 10-4-3 with one heart on it, at least we could, we have an extra out there. You know what I mean? Because we don't have the spade doesn't pair the board. So I think we can call here just about. Don't love it by any stretch of the imagination, but given the amount of money we've got in the pot already and the dead money from Yanuski, we're probably just going to have to sigh call, which I believe that you do. I mean, by sighing, obviously. Did you sigh when you called here? I hope you did.
I mean, I don't sigh as much as you do because I just expect to bink here a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
Because of how I run, and this is how you win. This is how you win big pots. You got the nut flush draw, you got two overcards, and someone else is putting money in the pot. So I don't sigh as much here, and I'm never ever going to fold. So yeah, I know I need to hit a card, and I can't win it unless I do, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and obviously running as good as you generally do, and not in this session, mind you, it is good for you more often than it is for me. But I think that obviously he's going to have really strong hands more often than not. Our ace and queen aren't going to be live very often. We don't need them to be, because we still have the direct pot odds from our flush draw, which is always going to be live. So yeah, I think this is fine, but I don't love it. Like, I don't love the situation, obviously, but once we bet, we've got that fold equity, and obviously when we get jammed on, we said when we bet the flop, we can stand to be raised, and I think that we just have a call after the action that we've put through. And having aces here is just very strange. Like, obviously he's trying his best to balance that cold calling range, but with someone behind you that I don't know if he knows that Yanuski's not very good, but or maybe Yanuski's the best of all time, and we just don't know what we're doing. But I think that, in a three-way pot, letting two people in when you have aces, just not the preferred play. Obviously, it's worked out here, but I don't particularly like it. And I think the standard play would just be to 4-bet and isolate in a heads-up pot. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
I think you're way overcomplicating your strategy if you're trying to incorporate, this into your cold call range, because then what does your 4-bet range look like? It's not as strong, and then it's a bit awkward. So I think that I'd prefer to just not do this kind of thing. You agree?
Yeah, I mean, aces in the small blind for me. I want to go 2 to the flop, and I know what he's doing. He's trying to get 2 of us in there, and when he sees the 3 spades and I'm betting into him, he doesn't want to see another one peel off.
So his play after the flop is fine. Yeah, his play after the flop is fine. I just don't agree with the pre-flop. But anyway, alas, we don't bink because something's off in the universe, and we lose another pot, and we've got a couple more, I think, to go.
Yeah,
let's have a look. So we've got ace king here. Oh god, Yanuski again, really? Okay. Hopefully he folds. Yeah, that's good. And a really bad looking nit opens, and we have just a clear 3-bet. That's good. Like the sizing as well. Folds around to the big blind, who also calls, who also looks pretty terrible by a general rule, and our original raiser calls as well. So interesting situation developing already. Oh, very similar to the last hand then. I assume in the end, if it's making the video. Big blind checks, and also, so let's think about this a little bit. Obviously, there's a bunch of sets out there. I'd expect maybe queens to have heard from both players, but 10s and 9s I certainly think are very, very reasonable hands to have. I mean, the big blind, he's doing some cold calling, so he might have 10s and 9s at a much higher frequency. which kind of sucks. But you know, we also have a gut shot against those hands, which makes this situation a lot more appealing, I guess, if we do have to play for stacks. So I think we can bet for sure. We can knock out some. I think we want to bet small, but we can knock out a few hands that, you know, are going to struggle to. Yeah, small to this amount seems okay. And obviously, again, looks like we're sizing for turn, which is fine. And big blind decides to fold. Okay, and then original raiser jams. Okay, so I was more worried about big blind having 10s and 9s. Obviously, if this guy has a set, then we're still getting, you know, the direct pot odds to call. So there's no way we can fold here. You know, we're getting now we need 37% to win. We probably have that as well if he has a set. No, if he has a flush, then we can still win, but it's a lot worse for us because he blocks our outs. So if he does have a flush, then that's going to be unfortunate. But there's not many flush combos left, right, that are going to raise call a 3-bet, you know. So I think we have a fine call here, and hopefully has a set rather than a flush, so that we can have some good equity. Oh god, well, what does he have then? Flush, I guess. Wow. Okay, we're not running very well. Yeah, his play is just weird, very strange. He does block a jack, which is good for him, but we do have the we absolutely have the direct odds here because, you know, our ace and king are also live. Sorry, our ace is live. So yeah, I don't like his play. Obviously, I don't think he's getting called by much that he's doing very well against. This is about as well as he's going to do, right? So, what do you think? Because we can have kings here, right? And he's in real bad shape against kings.
Yeah, he would be. I mean, it's similar to the previous hand. As long as I've got the ace of spades and I can also heal a jack, it's just not going anywhere but in the middle, and the two brickiest cards in the deck just peel off.
Yeah, I think based on the ranges that we're talking about, this is a much simpler situation for me, given that we have also that gut shot and our opponent's going to have some sets. It seems quite reasonable. And also he can obviously have some straights that he wants to do this with sometimes, like king jack. We do block king jack and we have outs against king jack. Yeah, I don't think there's any problem here. I think a lot of what you've done tonight has been fine. I think we've only had a problem with one of the hands, haven't we?
Yeah.
The first one. But we've got 2 big pots to go, and hopefully we can find some punts. Let's have a look. Okay, so we've got pocket 10s, middle position, and under the gun opens, and we can 3-bet no problem against this guy, and we're going to be getting it in if he shows any more interest. I think that seems fine. Another cold call, and given that we have 10s, you know, stuff like 9s and jacks is in there, but also I think this is slightly different because this guy might, I mean, he's got 530 big blinds. He might not necessarily be good, but we don't have any stats on him, right? So he might be calling with a wider array of hands for a cheaper price to allow the fish to come in. That seems pretty reasonable. So I think we can't really narrow his range down as much as we might normally be able to when someone cold calls. Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
Yeah. So we see a flop, which is looking pretty good for us, and I'm worried about your mental health now. One big. Okay, so this guy is now not good, probably, unless he misclicked. And under the gun calls to one big, and I think we have a quite clear raise. That's very small. I wouldn't mind seeing that make it more. As soon as I see that 2 people are quite bad, you definitely, there's so much value here. Obviously, we had top set, but you know, they might even fold an 8. They might not. They're certainly not folding like flush draws and stuff. I could.
I think what I prefer to do here, in hindsight, is make this
don't have to make it too much
amount where I can jam turn and this guy get this whole stack in on the turn. So maybe even make this like 15 or something. And then if he folds and he calls, then I can jam turn and it makes sense. Whereas even if these guys both call here, the pot size is still only going to get to 36. And that's not quite enough for me to jam on top of this guy because he's going to have 57. So it's just not quite balanced enough. I'd go to like 12 to 15.
Yeah, I think that seems fair. And obviously that works in 2 ways, right? Because if we raise to like 12 to 15 here and big blind folds and undergun calls, we can jam. But if big blind calls and undergun folds, then we've put more money in against in a deeper stack situation where we get to bet 3 streets and get the rest, right? So it works for both opponents. So I think, yeah, making it bigger here would be fine. We're going to fold out some stuff for sure, but we need to charge the draws, right? There's going to be some draws in here. My God, what's going on here? Okay, so this guy's awful, and I think that he's showing us that he doesn't want to fold. So I think we should certainly fast play our hand, because there's not really that much in there. I think this is a good size too. Like, we could consider just calling, but why would we do that, right? He's already telling us that he's bad, and 2, that he's probably got quite a strong hand that he's happy with. So I think fast playing is totally fine, and which we do, and he decides to call. So he could have a set of 8s, obviously. He can have 4s. He can have flush draws. And against that whole range, obviously, we're doing exceptionally well. So we're not worried about losing to anything. Obviously, now we can lose to pocket 4s. But, that's only one combo. Pocket 8s would be... The spade draws are now, like, really not doing very well. So what I'd like to see here, if he checks, is quite a small bet. Because, with 8s, we get... What the hell's going on? With 8s, we get the money regardless. If he has... I don't know what he's doing. If he has like a spade draw, then we want to keep him in by betting smaller. Yeah, so I like the fact that you make this, and obviously we still get to put the money in on the river, which is the most important thing. It's not stopping us getting the rest, So this is absolutely fine. And our opponent calls, and that's a really great card, obviously, because now we're getting paid by pretty much his whole range. Like, if he had 8s, we're getting paid. If he had a flush draw, we're getting paid by this opponent. It looks like there's no reason to think that we wouldn't get paid by this opponent if he had a flush draw. Queens is not going to be really in there very much. Should expect him to 4-bet pre. So yeah, I think we're just completely fine here, obviously, and it's a very good card for us. He bets, yeah, I'm just expecting him to have a flush, So, and obviously we jam. There's really, really, really nothing to say. And I assume he calls because this is in here. Oh, God. Bean, you don't run very good anymore. What's going on?
I know. When I saw that 4 on the turn, I just thought it was locked, and I thought that's my pot.
Yeah. Oh God,
it's a full
man.
house. Any draws, even if he's got Jack 9 of spades, I'm good. If he's got anything, I'm good. And then I think I said to myself on the river, the only hand is this. So
well, it is. It is the only hand. It's literally the only hand because he can't.
And it makes
queens,
sense
I guess, but
betting less than 50 bigs on the river because he's not even what he wants me to put my money in so much he doesn't even want to commit my whole stack. He wants to try and make that decision easier for me.
Well, he could be block betting to try and see turns and rivers with spades, right? But his play is just dreadful. I mean, like, dreadful, and he's got so many fucking chips. Excuse me, and it makes no. it's just such a bad run out, man. I just feel. I mean, obviously, this is like obviously when you move up to 16 NL and you're deeper and you're playing pots like this, to see this kind of thing is really obviously very painful. And to be quite honest, I think everyone can see. I don't think you've done much wrong in any of these hands. And we've got one more hand obviously to look at, but I mean, what on earth are you going to do about this?
Right. Well, yeah, this was the 68th hand of the evening, so I've been playing for like a few minutes.
Yeah,
and it set the tone for the whole session. But there's not that much to say about it. I'm never getting away. I'm loving all the money going in, and I'll do it a million times over.
Yeah, obviously.
It's just funny to look at. But,
yeah. A week on, we can laugh, but I don't think you enjoyed it much on the day.
No.
All right, let's look at the last hand, and we'll wrap this up. So our last hand is King Queen of Hearts, which looks pretty good. And this was the biggest pot of the day. Is that right?
Yep.
Save the best for last, or the worst. Let's see. 3-betting is good. We're deep. I think I would like to see slightly bigger being this deep. Seems fair.
Yeah.
But not the end of the world. I think bigger is good though. And it folds back round to our opponent under the gun who calls. And he looks like a fairly solid, on the nittier side reg. That'd be fair?
Yeah.
And when we see this board, obviously we're going to have all the really good overpairs. He's going to have a few of them, and he's going to have pocket 8s where we're not going to have pocket 8s, but he shouldn't have, with these stats, he shouldn't have 4s and deuces. So he'll have 8s, but he won't have, especially this deep. I mean, I guess if he does open 4s and deuces, he'll call this deep, but he probably isn't opening them given his stats. We do have quite a few on him, so I think I like maybe a slightly bigger bet, but this I think is okay. And obviously with 2 overs and the flush draw, and obviously having quite a strong range with all the over pairs still in our range and not all of them in his. And the only disadvantage we have is the 8s. Then I think it's going to be fine. And when he raises, I think we don't want to fast play this. We certainly don't want to be getting this in against like ace 4, ace 3 of hearts, right? That would be the worst thing ever. So I think just calling and reevaluating the turn is the only play we have here. And certainly his range is going to look a lot like pocket 8s and you know, I don't know what else he wants to raise here. I guess some strong hearts. So I'm proceeding with a great degree of caution here, because if he's a bit nittier, he's going to have strong hearts, pocket 8s, maybe like a pocket jacks, but it's not really consistent with his player style. So this I'm very concerned about already. On the turn, what does he do? He decides to lead, and I think that again we have a fine call. I don't want to, raise and get snapped off obviously by 8s, and well, obviously not snap. We'll be raising, and he'll probably be going all in or just calling and then checking river. But yeah, a lot of 8s, a lot of strong flush draws from this kind of player. If he was a little bit more aggressive, obviously we could have him covered in some flush draw spots. We block a lot of those as well. A lot of the ones he would continue with that are strong enough pre-flop are going to have a king and queen of hearts in them. So something like the ace king of diamonds that he took as a bluff, but is he bluffing that much? I don't know. So we only know a little bit about him, and we can safe to say he's fairly strong, but who knows. The jack is somewhat relevant because we can certainly have pocket jacks, but he probably can as well. When we raised a small sizing on the flop, he can certainly raise pocket jacks, and that seems when we bet a small sizing on the flop, he can certainly raise pocket jacks on the flop. So he can certainly have jacks, but we can have jacks also. I don't think we do anything differently whatsoever with jacks. Actually, in fact, I know we wouldn't. And queens plus for sure we still have. So, I mean, if he wants to bet here, our range is still pretty strong, right? So he decides to check, and we go for an overbet. Right, so talk to me about this bet. Like, what are you representing here?
So, without first of all thinking what I'm representing, I know that if I check, I'm dead.
Yes, yes.
Obviously. I just never like to give up a hand, ever. So I try and think
ever.
I first of all try and think, how can I win this hand? And obviously I've got king high, I've got air, so the first thing that comes into my head is I need to fire a bluff here, and then I'll go through the process of, is this a good spot to bluff or not?
Right.
And
what do you think about this spot?
Draws. I've got 2 hearts. What hands would I have that I would do this with? Jacks.
Yeah. Would you do this with queens and kings and aces?
Yeah, I would, because I think
if you're bluffing a lot, which you're saying you are, then you need to have more than just jacks, right?
Yeah, I would do this with aces, kings, just because queens, because I think this would be a great value bet with those hands as well.
You represent those hands really strongly, and I am concerned about his line. It seems very strange. I think I would prefer, if he had a set, I think he would be much more inclined, looking like a bit more of a straightforward player, to just go ahead and bet himself on the river. So I think that this is good. And when we think about choosing bluffs, what do we think about this choice as a bluff, right? So obviously the kind of hands we beat are like ace 3 of hearts that he decides to give up because he doesn't want to bluff in a big pot. And that certainly is going to fold that out, right? He could have ace jack of hearts very reasonably, and he's going to have a real tough spot there. So this seems good. We need to think about how many bluffs we actually have to wonder whether we're over bluffing or not. And I don't think we have that many, right? So we raised an under the gun raiser, which means our range is going to be quite tight. So we're going to have like ace king of hearts and king queen of hearts. And those are going to block like his good over pairs, which is nice to see. But we don't block, obviously 8s, and we don't block jacks, which is a concern. But then we'd have to be turning those hands as a bluff anyways, and we probably wouldn't do that. So we do need to find some bluffs. If you're going to be betting all those hands you're talking about, and we see this kind of board, I can only really think of ace king of diamonds that you'd probably do the same things with. and maybe king queen of diamonds less often, and then king queen of hearts and ace king of hearts seem really good as well. You know, you'll probably know better than me if you have queen jack and jack 10 of hearts here. But I think if you I think if you choose jack 10 of hearts, you're probably you do have those, are you saying?
Yeah, I would have them. Yeah.
So I think if you choose jack 10 of hearts, you're probably going to check back this river. Seems fair. But I wouldn't mind bluffing with it, but because you block the jacks. But he's probably going to, you know, I think you're just going to take a showdown. There's no need to get fancy with it. And he goes all in, and I just think, yeah, obviously we're folding, but I think he has eights, or I think he has eights pretty much, and his line is really odd. And I like our bluff because of how often you're saying, I mean, being in your shoes specifically, you know, you've got to value bet a lot because you like to bluff a lot. So, you know, given that we credibly rep quite strong hands, and he knows that, we obviously, you know, we just ran into the top half of his range. There's no way he's doing this with like ace jack of hearts, right? Unless he's.
I just love it from him because if he's got jacks here, I think that's so nice because it's so tempting to just fire another bullet, and for him checking, trying to keep all my bluffs in, and then for him to come over the top of me is just a really nice play. Because if he then fires another bullet on that jack, I'm definitely going to fold, obviously. So he's just got another.
Yeah, with this part of your range, you're going to fold, but there's lots of parts of your range that are going to want to call. So, you know, it's a risky play because, you know, we can check back like jack 10 of hearts, you know, we can give up, especially at this stake. Not a lot of people do what you do, you know. So I think the standard play is just to go ahead and bet, but like, you know, it's fine. Like obviously mixing in like really strong parts of your range, and he's thinking, you know, if we bet like an amount that we do, then we might not be able to fold for the extra 70 bigs, and he only gets more money. It's obviously a fine play, and I can certainly get behind it. But yeah, like I said, we need to have some bluffs. This seems like our best non-pair bluffing candidate to me. Given that we can also fold out like ace 3 of hearts and stuff, I think it's a fine play. And
well, he's also sees 2 hearts, 2 diamonds on the board. He might have me tagged as a big bluffer, and he knows what's coming.
Yeah,
so
that's true. It's possible, mate. Yeah. But you know, as long as you have enough value bets, and you know you have enough value bets, you're allowed to do this. I don't think you're printing money, you know, especially against this kind of not nit, but like nitty, reggier kind of player, not nit, just a bit harsh. But he's going to have eights and jacks here. Like he's played his hand very tricky, and I kind of like it, but I think you're going to make more money against general pool playing more straightforward than this, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if he was bluffing, he's the biggest sicko of all time, and I would give him incredible amounts of credit for that. But
he can't be bluffing. It's not. There's not enough equity there.
Yeah.
To fold it. It's another 75 bigs.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm saying he's not capable of like having things that aren't sets here, then he's certainly not capable of bluffing here. So, eights and jacks. Jacks probably less often than eights. Eights he's going to have 100% frequency. Jacks he might not check raise flop, and then he certainly could at some, but I don't know if he does all the time. You know, so pocket eights I think we ran into here, but I think your play is reasonable, if not a little bit optimistic, but certainly fine. I'm worried about our bet sizing, you know, representing more pocket jacks than the other 3 overpairs, because I don't know if you'd want to do that with them, but if you're saying you would, then that's fine. So that's it, mate. That's a lot of buy-ins. On the whole, I think you were very, very unfortunate. I mean, there was one hand where we could have saved, like, what was it, 50 bigs on the river? And we maybe could have not bluffed this river, but I think it's still fine. So this is maybe one of the unluckiest sessions I've ever seen you play. I mean, certainly it's the worst I've seen since you started, you know, playing properly. But you seem to take it in your stride quite well. How do you feel now, looking back at it? Did it make you feel better?
I mean, I feel fine about it in general. Would I change how I played those hands now? Probably not. I mean, as you said, there's a couple of spots where I might have been able to save a little bit of money, but I'm always getting it in with ace of spades on those 2 boards. For the viewers at home, it was 10 buy-ins, which is $160 total in, you know, a couple of hours. And it just was getting worse and worse and worse.
It really was.
I took it in my stride because I don't just play the game to win money every session. I like to challenge myself, and I
Yeah.
like to put ultimate pressure on the opponent, and that's where I get the biggest buzz from.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I like to do. And I like bluffing. I like overbetting turns and rivers and putting people in tight spots. And I think I've done that. And I haven't managed to bink, which unfortunately is what happens in this game. So yeah, even though I lost, I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I think that that's a very healthy way to deal with it as well. I mean, we know that when we move up to 16 and L, we can afford to lose 10 buy-ins in a session and it not ruin us. So I know that your bankroll's still really healthy. I know you're more than capable of beating this stake. So I'm definitely happy that we didn't punt off at least 9 of these buy-ins. I think there was not much we could have done. I think this is one of the sickest sessions I've seen in a long time, and I think you're going to be fine in the future. But thanks for obviously taking the time to look at them with me. I know it's probably not the not the nicest thing to have to relive, but I appreciate it.
No probs.
All right. So thanks everyone again for watching. Obviously, leave a comment, subscribe, like, whatever you want to do. If you're enjoying any of the videos that I'm doing, I am still coaching at the moment, and I may have maybe one space left, but it is starting to get like pretty close to full for me. So obviously my contacts will be in the description. It's EC22 with 3 Ys at Twitter, and EC22 with poker@gmail.com with 3 Ys from my email if you have any inquiries. But thanks very much again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.